Good morning, Kahal Kadosh. Beruchim Abaim to everybody. Today, Tuesday, the 7th day of Menachem Av, corresponding to the 25th day of July. Today's class graciously sponsored by Maurice Chera and family Le'ilui Nishmat, his beloved father, Ishak ben Hannah, Alav Shalom, Mr. Isaac Chera. Additionally, by Yaakov, Kobe Cohen and family Le'ilui Nishmat, his grandmother, Yakut Bat Freha, Aliyah Shalom. Additionally, today's class dedicated Le'ilui Nishmat, my uncle, Herschel Kalman Ben Yeheskel, Alav Shalom, that today, the 7th day of Menachem Av, is also the day of his Askara. So I'd like to just say a short few words about my dear uncle, Alav Shalom, that he was a very special person, a person who truly have Simchat Haim, happiness and joy in life, who was loved by everyone, and he loved everyone. And Baruch Hashem, he merited to have children that follow, and grandchildren, obviously, that follows in the beautiful way of our Torah Mitzvot and Ma'asim Tovim, generation after generation, despite the fact that he came from a very traditional background, but obviously when it comes to the matters of the spirit of the neshama, we have no even understanding how much a neshama can flourish if the opportunities are given and also the will is there. Also, one of the things that him and his wife, my aunt, my father's sister, did, they save neshamot. They save people, literally. One of the most memorable things were when they adopted two Jewish children that there were issues. One of them, I think that the father was in jail and the mother was unfortunately succumbed to addictions, and there were two beautiful neshamot that they needed a Jewish home. Otherwise, they go into the foster care system, and once they go into the foster care, which not all the time can go to a Jewish family, we don't know what happens. And Baruch Hashem, they step up to the plate and they adopted these children and they raised them also to be productive members of Am Yisrael, followers of our Torah, Mitzvot, and Ma'asim Tovim. And also they saved many lives in welcoming people to the home for Shabbat, in encouraging people to live a Jewish and a meaningful way of life. So despite their biological and the adopted children, they also have many neshamot under their wings that with their happiness, with their love and their warmth, they were able to reactivate in the ways of our Torah. So for that, we say, Le'ilui Nishmato, Hashem should keep his neshama high in Gan Eden, and we should have Be'ezat Hashem Besurot Tovot. Amen. So obviously we are literally 48 hours away from Tisha BeAb, which I cannot avoid the topic of whatever is going on in Eretz Israel. If you try to follow the news of Israel, they are changing by the hour. And I'm not going to get involved in what's going on really, but we need to understand the revolution, literally, that is going on in Israel. Maybe now is a bit more calmer than yesterday, but yesterday you saw the video clips, the millions, I'm not sure millions, but for sure thousands of manifestations that were going on. You know, like somebody sent me a picture before and it says, for half of Israel is Tisha BeAb, for half of Israel is Simchat Torah. You know, half of the nation is happy, half of the nation is not happy, which in a way, there is nothing coincidental that this unfortunate and challenging situation that is happening, and what I say, unfortunate, irrelevant of the judicial aspect of it, which I must confess that I'm not really too knowledgeable, with the exception of the superficial way of understanding, but I do understand that a lot of these things that are happening can and may change the tapestry of Am Israel as a nation, as humans, and obviously as productive members of Am Israel. So I can imagine that the timing of everything that is going on is not because people had it or people were fed up with everything that was going on. We need to remember that prior to the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, there were similar incidents that took place. Obviously today, with technology and news channels and WhatsApps and Instagrams and YouTubes and everything that is available to transfer and to share information, so it's secure in Israel. It's secure in Israel. From the comfort of your home, you turn on the news channel or you get a WhatsApp clip and you and you see what's going on. So you feel the tension. You feel the tension, which I will say openly, that prior to the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, there were similar scenarios that developed. We don't know, we don't have images, we don't have videos, but I tell you one thing, that even when it came to the situation with Bar Kokhba, after the destruction of the second Bet HaMikdash, or the movements who wanted to rebel against Babel, against the Romans, also created like an inner friction in Am Israel. So we hope and pray that this darkness that apparently we are seeing, because definitely it's creating mamash, if before this there was already a distance between the observance of the Torah, the traditionals of the Torah, or the traditions of our Judaism, or those that unfortunately were brainwashed or were raised in a way of anti-Torah, this is becoming much more pronounced now than it may have been in the past. So we hope and pray that this is the darkness before sunrise. And Be'ezat Hashem, Thursday, Wednesday night comes the holiday of Tisha BeAb. And yes, I did say holiday because that's what the Pasuk writes in Megillat Echa. Kara alai moed. Tisha BeAb is called a day of holiday. That's the reason why when it comes to Tisha BeAb, yes, we sit on the floor. Yes, we don't wear leather shoes. Yes, we fast. Yes, we shut down the lights of the synagogue. Yes, we remove the parochet. Yes, we don't even say hello. But guess what? When it comes to prayers, what do we say in Tisha BeAb? We say Yehishem. We don't say Anna. Tisha BeAb, you should say triple Anna. But we don't say, finish the Hazara Yehishem, like there is a Berit Milah. Why do we say Yehishem? Short answer, because we are celebrating in advance. We are celebrating in advance. By the way, there is another halacha in the Shulchan Aruch that we celebrate in advance. What is this halacha? The laws of Anna, Tahanunim, during the month of Nisan. The halacha says, throughout the entire month of Nisan, Yehishem. Why? So the answer is as follows. The first 13 days are the days of the inauguration of the Mishkan. The 14th day is Erev Pesach. Then we have the week of Yom Tov, Pesach. So till the 22nd day, I'm covered. But why don't I say Anna from the 23rd till the end of the month? You know what the halacha writes? Because the inauguration of Bet HaMikdash number 3 will take place in the final week of the month of Nisan, so we're celebrating in advance Mashiach's arrival. Otherwise, from the technical department of prayer, Anna should have been said. But it's not. And remember what we mentioned when Rosh Chodesh Av started over literally a week ago, that Pesach and Tisha BeAv are like twin brother and sister. The night of Pesach is the night of Tisha BeAb. That's it. Go back 100 years in Jewish history. Go see when was the first Seder of Pesach night. The first Seder night is the night of Tisha BeAb. So this past Pesach, open your calendars if you like. You'll see Pesach was Wednesday night. Tisha BeAb, Wednesday night. Not only that, in the Keynote, in the special prayer of lamentation that we will not say, hopefully we will not say, that's the reason why it's written in the Moed Kol Hai that Megillat Esther, it's written in a parchment. You write Megillat Esther in a parchment. Why? The Pasuk says, Lo Yasuf Mizaram. Megillat Esther will remain forever. Even after Mashiach comes, Megillat Esther continues. But when it comes to Megillat Echa, we don't write it in parchment. Why not? Because parchment, it's made to last forever. Not forever, but 50 years for sure. Even 100 years, even 150 years. But why don't we write it in parchment? Because we hope that Mashiach will come. You know, in many Ashkenazic synagogues, the books of Keynote, the book of Keynote, which is a paperback book, you know what they do when Tisha BeAb is over? They put it in the Geniza. And they wait a whole year to buy new Keynote books. They don't have the Sephardic books that cost $20, $25 a book. They have the 99 cents paperback, you know, disposable. It's true. It's true. And that's what the Moed Kol Hai says. It says Megillat Esther, that is a Megillah of happiness and survival of Am Israel. It's written in a parchment. Megillat Echa, we don't write it in a parchment. That's why Megillat Echa, we read it from the Chumash, or we read it from the special booklet of Tisha BeAb. So, no more Tisha BeAb. Tisha BeAb will become a day of holiday. By the way, I can say this because it's public knowledge now. Last week, a para aduma, or 2 weeks ago, a new para aduma was taken to Israel from the United States. It already arrived in Israel. The Red Heifer, which is a mandatory requirement when Mashiach comes. It's a great question. I believe Texas. There is another one in Arizona, I was told. But the one from Texas, I'm 90% sure, it was already taken to Israel. And they keep it in a special area, out of sight, to keep it, preserve it. Ba'ezat Hashem, hopefully we'll have it and we'll have a need immediately. Why? We learned this back in Perashat Hukat. The para aduma, the red heifer, is the special procedure that is utilized to purify every person that is impure of tum'at met, of the impurity of becoming in contact with a dead body, or God forbid, or becoming in contact with someone that has been in contact with a dead body. Let's say everybody. Because maybe you shook somebody's hands that yesterday worked in the Hevra Kadisha, or the day before went to the cemetery and carried the coffin. So this is an impurity that has been lingering in the world uninterruptedly since the destruction of the second Bet HaMikdash, because the last para aduma was done during the time of the second Bet HaMikdash. So do the numbers. If the second Bet HaMikdash was destroyed at least over 1950 some years ago, how many people, Jewish people, came throughout the world in these almost 2,000 years? Millions. Millions. And the physical contact between people continues. I shake your hand, you shook my hands, I shook his hands, he shook his hands, you shook somebody yesterday in the store that shook somebody else. So that the Tum'at Met exists. The benefit of Tum'at Met is that because there is no way to purify ourselves, so it really doesn't change much in our life. But in the time of the Bet HaMikdash, someone that was impure because of this type of condition wasn't allowed to enter the Bet HaMikdash, wasn't allowed to eat korbanot, wasn't allowed to eat certain matters that were required to have tahara. So I think that we're going to split the next few minutes of the class to go over the day of Erev Tisha BeAb and Tisha BeAb proper, at least to a certain extent, and tomorrow, Be'ezat Hashem, we'll add a few more halachot. So we know that we have the certain basic prohibitions when it comes to Tisha BeAb. One of them is, as we heard the halacha inside, the prohibition of wearing leather shoes on Tisha BeAb, like in Yom Kippur. Now, the concept of leather, it's something that perhaps for us today is something easy, automatic, that people have shoes. You have shoes, your own shoes, you have no issues. Shoes, sneakers, slippers, whatever is comfortable for your feet. And obviously respectful to come to the synagogue with. But in the olden days, the rabbis of the Talmud established an interesting beracha in the Birkot HaShachar. In the Birkot HaShachar, we have different berachot. Some berachot are for the body. For example, Malbish Arumim, who dresses the naked. You have garments to wear. That's a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have shoes to wear, also is a gift. Hachamim added in the Birkot HaShachar the beracha that says, She'asa li kol sorchi, that Hashem provided for all my needs. In this halacha, there is a mahloket between many poskim. The ruling of Hacham Obadiah Yosef, alav shalom, is that because today having shoes is something very affordable and common for society, so really I don't have to skip that beracha in the day of Yom Kippur or Tisha BeAb, which are the only 2 days that we don't wear leather shoes. And therefore he says, since wearing shoes today is accessible, affordable, and common practice, there is no reason why to skip this particular beracha. Because nowadays, this beracha means all my needs. Hashem gives me what I need. If I need it, I will have it. And if I don't have it, it's because I don't need it. Let that word sink in your brain. No, wait. That's according to the ruling of Hacham Obadiah Yosef. The Syrian tradition for centuries follows the ruling of the Mekubalim and the Ben Ish Hai, and the Syrian tradition is not to recite the beracha of She'asa li kol sorchi. Even though that we respect, obviously, the ruling of Hacham Obadiah Yosef, but when it comes to specific traditions, to specific communities, this is where we have some flexibility. So according to the Syrian tradition, we do not say She'asa li kol sorchi. Now, this beracha was established by the Hachamim of the Talmud. We need to understand that the way we live our life today in the 21st century, it's considered a mega luxurious lifestyle compared to the way people lived many generations ago. And the further we go back, the more we understand how good we have it today. That you have food ready, you have garments ready, you don't have to plant the seeds in order to have food to eat. You don't have to spend weeks and months and seasons in the field in order to have what to eat. You go, you wake up, you don't want to dress, you go to Instacart, you go online, they deliver your food in your home. Sure, that's the way to do. You want to send something to the cleaners? I don't go to the cleaners comes to me. I want to buy something, I don't go to a store. Go Amazon or whichever store you need and hajj it. Obviously, occasionally I go to a store, but with online shopping, life became different. But go back in the time of the Talmud. Most people walked around barefooted. And you don't have to go to 2,000 years ago in the Talmud. Go to Africa, even today. Or go to other places 50 years ago, 100 years ago. And if they had shoes, was a simple piece of sole or leather that they will tie it around their ankle, and that was the shoe. That's where the sandals come from. The sandals, today obviously you have styles and fashion statements and colors and labels and brands. But the original sandals, where do you think they came from? In the time of the Roman Empire, in the time of the Greeks. Right? That's what it was. So when Hachamim saw the comfort and the health of the human body by having a shoe to wear, they established this beracha. But Hacham Rabbi Yosef says, since today having shoes, etc., is not a big deal and is affordable, so you're not exempt. But as I said before, according to the Syrian tradition, we don't say she'asa li kol sorchi. Another discrepancy that we find, and I did mention this, I'm not sure if it's yesterday or Sunday, but I'm going to say it quickly. It's the prayer of Shacharit. According to our tradition, the way we do is on Thursday morning, we come to the synagogue, we put on Talet tefillin here in this room or at home, and then you put on Talet tefillin, you say Kadeshli, Shema, you take it out, and then you pray inside without Talet and tefillin. As I mentioned then, in Eretz Israel, they do tefillah shacharit with Talet and tefillin, and when it comes to Megillat Echa, etc., they remove the Talet and tefillin, they sit on the floor, and they say the remaining part of the prayers. In Minha, our tradition is to put on Talet and tefillin. You know, in New York, for example, I've seen it when I was there, which I've seen it also here, that many put on Talet and tefillin on every ta'anit, in every fast day. Our tradition from the Syrian community in Argentina, which I'm from, the only afternoon that we wore Talet and tefillin was Tisha BeAb and Erev Kippur. Those were the only 2 days in the afternoon that we wore Talet and tefillin. I saw it, and I was told that in Brooklyn the tradition is to wear Talet and tefillin every ta'anit, and probably the Hachamim that established this tradition had the reasons why to put it on. One reason I was told, when I asked a while back, why was this established? It was established to help the person to recite 100 berachot a day. Because in the ta'anit, since we don't eat, so then in order to make up for the 100 berachot, I need to substitute berachot of food with berachot of mitzvot. That's what someone told me. Honestly speaking, I did not do further research. Here, the community is split in this. What does it mean? Those who come from Brooklyn perhaps put it on. The rest of the community, especially if they come from South America, they don't put it on. But obviously when it comes to Tisha BeAb, everybody puts it on because this is part of the Takanat Hachamim. Now, concerning working on Tisha BeAb, and that's a question that came yesterday, and I'll share with you maybe some of the questions that we received in the past 24 hours. So some of them has to do with the cleaning of the home and cooking on Tisha BeAb. So the halacha brings down that for generations, it seems to be a peculiar tradition in Am Israel that many people in the afternoon of Tisha BeAb, they will clean the home to welcome Mashiach. That's what's written in the holy books. Now, do you have to do that? No. But that's what says in the halacha, that many ladies and many families, they have this tradition after Hasot. Hasot for our city is approximately like 1:30, 2 o'clock. We got to look at the calendar. But it says after that, they will sweep the floor and mop the floor of the house. And this was done with the hope that Be'ezat Hashem later on in the afternoon, it will be Sha'at Nahamu, the hour of Nahamu, the hour of consolation, that Mashiach will come any moment. Interesting concept. So whoever has this tradition can definitely continue. Concerning cooking, another question that came. Can you cook on the day of Tisha BeAb? So the short answer is, if you need to cook for the breaking of the fast, you are allowed to cook after Hasot, after, let's say, 2 o'clock, not before. And the halacha also says that those that cook on the day of Tisha BeAb, they need to be careful of not tasting or sampling the food. True. Because what's the common practice? If you ever cook, what is the common practice of someone that cooks? You need to taste. So the halacha says, if you're going to cook in the afternoon to break the ta'anit, make sure not to taste the food. What about cooking for Shabbat? Are you allowed to cook on Thursday for Shabbat or not? So this question came, and I couldn't get a clear-cut answer just by searching the halacha. I needed to do a deeper research, and I found opinions who authorize to cook on Thursday afternoon lesorech mitzvah. For example, Shabbat. Let's say that a person cannot cook on Friday. Let's say your work schedule or whatever situation you have coming up this Friday, it will not give you the chance to cook. So interesting enough, I found a pesach that says that lesorech mitzvah, for example, cooking for Shabbat, you're allowed to cook on Thursday, again, after Hasot. Working on Tisha BeAb. So we already mentioned that ideally will be that on Tisha BeAb, the person does not go to work. Why not? Because working distracts the mind of the Avelut. That's why, God forbid, someone that is in Shiva is not allowed to go to work. Why not? Because working will distract us from the day of national mourning. So you may ask, so what do I do on Tisha BeAb? We already know the answer. Come to the synagogue to pray. Synagogue prayer will be a bit longer Thursday morning. Then go home to rest or log into itorah.com. That's going to have a beautiful lineup of shiurim be'ezat Hashem on Thursday. In the afternoon, come. We'll watch together a live video, a beautiful video that I found for this Tisha BeAb, something unbelievable. And be'ezat Hashem, Mashiach will be here. Can you imagine? What do you think Mashiach is going to come? Who is going to come when Mashiach comes? Who is you think is going to come to first? No, he's going to come to the rabbi of the shul. He's going to come to the synagogue. That's what the Gemara writes. Why to the synagogue? Because the synagogues will become part of the Bet HaMikdash. So your best day, your best place to be Tisha BeAb, especially in the afternoon, is here. So at 4 o'clock, we're going to have the special programming all the way till Mincha Arvit. You have many hours to rest after Shacharit. Then you come. There is no popcorn for the video presentation, but we'll have inspiring hours together. Nothing. No snacks. Nothing. Air conditioning we give you because we are in Florida and it's super hot and you need to be healthy and strong. So we give you air conditioning. I cannot give you water, I cannot give you snacks, but I can give you air conditioning and a comfortable seat. Now, so what happens? So I got a phone call, not a phone call, I got a message yesterday about someone who works in the hospital. And the person tried to get a backup to substitute for them on Thursday. And as of last night, they were not able to find. So the short answer is that a case like this person is allowed to work in a hospital because you're dealing with saving people's lives. We're not dealing with the concept of opening up your store, making money, and being happy. You're working in a hospital to deal with people's medical challenges and pain and suffering and conditions. So the answer to this person who asked the question was, if you tried and were not able to find a substitute, go ahead and go to work. And obviously the person will be fasting. Anyways, their shift finishes, I think, by 2 or 3 o'clock. But at least the morning part of the day, that person is allowed to work under the halachic permission. Same thing, somebody that works or somebody that is a volunteer responder for Hatzalah. Hatzalah calls you, right? You get an emergency call to respond. You get up from your Shabbat table, you walk out of the synagogue in Kippur, and you run to save people's life. Why? I think the Kahal Kadosh knows the answer. Because we're dealing with Pikuach Nefesh, and once we deal with Pikuach Nefesh, matters that have to do with life, there is no more priority in life than preserving life itself. Because the Torah supports this with a pasuk that writes, Ele hamizvot, these are the commandments, asher ya'aseh adam otam b'chai bahem, that a person will perform these mitzvot and live with them. What does that mean? That mitzvot were given for the person to be alive. What does that mean? That means that if doing a mitzvah, God forbid, can bring a certain type of physical or medical challenge to the person, guess what? You take a step away from the mitzvah. And what halakha can we bring to support this statement? For example, eating on Tisha BeAb. Everybody needs to fast on Tisha BeAb. That's the first halakha. Hakol hayavim. But the halakha says They are scenarios of exceptions. Some of them we mentioned the other day. I got 2 questions from 2 different sources. Ladies who just gave birth. A week ago, a few days ago, the halakha says they are exempt of fasting because they need to recuperate themselves, especially in the case that they are nursing. And nursing, there is a different parameter of recently giving birth and a mother that is nursing. As somebody who gave birth now recently, up to 30 days, according to the halakha, is exempt of fasting. But people are so good and so wonderful that when they hear that they are exempt of fasting, they're not happy with the answer because they want to fast. So I'll tell you what I tell them. So I tell them the following. Hydrate yourself before the ta'anit. Okay? Easy. Eat well before the ta'anit. The ta'anit by us starts at 8 something. So you're going to have on Wednesday, you're going to eat earlier than usual perhaps, and then go to sleep. Then wake up the next morning. Don't wake up early. You have to wake up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Wake up a bit later, talking about ladies that gave birth. And then you see how you feel. If you good and you feel that you can continue, go ahead. But as I say to anyone that asks this type of questions, besides giving the halachic parameters, which I will explain in a moment, I will say, ask your doctor if fasting is okay for you. And you'll be surprised. Many times the doctors will say, you are not allowed to fast. Every 2-3 hours, you need to drink a cup of water, you need to eat something, medical conditions, diabetes, or whatever case it may be, low immune system, etc. Which, by the way, it was one of the rulings that came during COVID, that those that had COVID or that were recently recovered from COVID, they were not allowed to fast. You can do in between. Why? Because COVID weakened the immune system of the person. So the immune system is already weakened, and you're going to weaken it more by not eating and fasting. So the Hachamim gave a couple of guidelines. For example, and I will say this very openly, for those that are medically or halachically exempt of fasting, that doesn't mean that you can eat whatever you want. You have to eat to sustain yourself. Don't start making delicacies food that takes you 2 hours to prepare and having all kinds of exuberant type of items. No, if the halakha allows you to eat, okay, eat. You see, sliced bread, a bit of cream cheese, or a slice of cheese. Don't make a rib steak. Don't make a sea bass. Don't make a salmon steak. You understand? The same halakha, by the way, it's written about children. That in order for the children to understand that today is different, meaning to say, today is Tisha BeAb. And the halakha is very, very clear that until the child gets closer to bar or bat mitzvah, there is no obligation for them to fast. But when they are allowed to eat, they should keep it on the simple. Today, there is no ice cream. Why no ice cream? I'm eating. Today is Tisha BeAb. Children love ice cream. Adults also. Tisha BeAb, no candy, no chocolate. You want to eat? Take a carrot stick. You understand? I know children don't really like that much vegetables. And the idea is, okay, the halakha allows me to eat. That doesn't mean that I'm going to take advantage and eat delicacies. I'm going to eat in order for my body to be healthy, to be strong, and to be able to be a fully functional person. even during pregnancy, the halakha is gray when it comes to pregnancy. And it all depends on the stage of the pregnancy and on the physical being of the person. The way the Gemara writes in Masechet Nida, the Gemara writes, the first trimester of pregnancy is very challenging for the wife. And as a father and as a husband, and I'm sure that everybody can testify as well, that is challenging. Why? Because of the nausea, because of the dizziness, because of the hormonal changes in the body. So obviously, somebody that is dizzy and has nausea, etc., in that case, they are exempt. And we go back to the pasuk that I quoted. The mitzvot were given to us to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to fortify our connection and commitment to the Torah. But if there is a, I should say, a remote possibility that, God forbid, this may hinder the physical well-being of the person, that's when you need to take a step back. But I will say the following. Don't be afraid of asking the question. I might only gave you a handful of questions. If I check my cell phone, this is what happened yesterday only. If I go to my cell phone, maybe from Sunday, probably I will find many more questions that came about. And I know already in my brain, I already know some of the questions that we were asked. So for the audience, don't be afraid of asking your LOR, your local Orthodox rabbi, wherever you are, if you are in Florida or in New York or in Dill or in South America. Ask, because at the end of the day, when we asked, and don't be afraid of the answer. You know, the other day, somebody told me a story that a person was afraid to ask a question because they were afraid of the answer. Of course it happens. I understand that a person may be afraid of the answer. But what do you think? That we want to make the people's life difficult? What do you think? That we want to say things because we like to say, oh, this is not allowed? The opposite. When a person already has the goodwill, again, there are certain questions that the answers are obvious. I know a question that came in, and I requested clarification from the person. Someone is asking, and I did not get the full version of the question, but it's a simple question that it says, we love to do the mitzvah of Sukkah. Hazaku Baruch. Can I build the Sukkah in my balcony? It's a beautiful question. A person loves to do the mitzvah of Sukkah, right? And apparently move to a place that they don't have a backyard or open space, but they love the mitzvah of the Sukkah, that they want to do it the Sukkah in the balcony. So they don't miss the mitzvah of the Sukkah. Hazaku Baruch. So the simple answer is, what kind of question is that? If there is a ceiling on that balcony, regretfully, the Sukkah cannot be made. If there is part of the balcony is covered and part of the balcony is exposed, not a problem. But if the entire balcony is covered, even though it's very loyal and very beautiful, that you want to build the Sukkah, but the halakha means Sukkah tahat hashamayim. Sukkah needs to be under the heaven. We'll finish the class here today, and Be'ezat Hashem we'll continue with some of these halachot which are relevant for the next day or so. All this, as I said before, is subject to change. We hope and pray, as we just said in the tefillah, Ki lishoatecha kivinu kol hayom, that we hope Be'ezat Hashem, the Geulah will come to Am Israel. And if there is no more auspicious and suitable time in the year than the next 48 hours. So, Yehi Ratzon Shenizke v'Nechamat Sion. Thank you for all the sponsors of today's class. And may all the neshamot that we mentioned have an aliyah in Gan Eden. Amen. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Hanani.